Greetings. Welcome to Nature's Bounties. Oh, it's so delightful to know that we have a Father who loves us so much that He gives us so much to bless us in nature, to give us good health, to give us life. I'm so grateful, and I know we all are. It's a privilege to have with me again Dr. Adetayo Adeniji. We are still talking about God's ways of healing and how our mental health will be in the best of health so that physically and spiritually we can be well too. Welcome, Dr. Adeniji.
Thanks for having me here. It's always a delight to be here.
Why don't we just have a word of prayer before we actually start? Dear Heavenly Father, we are grateful. We are happy. We know that you love us. Therefore, we seek to understand, to know, so that we can employ all of those things that you have given us in nature to bless us and for us to live for you. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Sovereignty of choice. The word sovereign is from the word sovereign, and it means that one who has been given the authority, actually absolute authority, like a monarch. Will you agree with me as we go on that indeed God has given us that power to be what He wants us to be by our choice? It's understandable when we understand something, then it becomes easy. But whilst we seek to understand, we take time, and that is why we have such a program like this, so that we can know those things that will help us indeed to have the best of health. Dr. Adeniji is going to help me here to help me to see where is the seat of the will, that part of us that will help us to make the right decision. Dr. Adeniji.
Thank you very much. So the seat of the will is the part of the brain we call the frontal lobe. Now, the frontal lobe is that part of the brain that is just behind the forehead, just right here at the back of the forehead. It's the largest part of the cerebrum. There's a part of the brain we call the cerebrum. So the frontal lobe constitutes about 1/3 of the whole cerebrum, and it's the largest, like I said, and it keeps on developing until the mid-30s. Until we attain mid-30, like 35, 36 years of age. So it's the part of the brain that keeps developing because of the kind of functions it performs, especially in terms of will, making choices, organization and planning. So see, it's very vital. So the frontal lobe also carries out other functions apart from helping us to make choices. So some of those functions are that voluntary muscle movements. That's why if the frontal lobe is affected, people can have problems with their movements. Even the fine movements like making a cup of tea, sequencing complex movements, series of complex movements like putting on a dress, buttoning up the dress, like making a cup of tea sequentially, putting the kettle of water on fire or on the gas or on the electric stove, and then pouring it into the cup, putting the tea inside, putting a teaspoon. All those sequencing of events are controlled by the frontal lobe. It's also the seat of speech and language. It also controls our working memory. That's reasoning, judgment, organization, planning. That's why they call it the seat of executive functions. Because you have to plan, then make good judgments. Like you see a situation, you have to judge it to know what steps to take, what actions you're supposed to take. It's also the seat of problem solving. It's the part of the brain that helps us to solve problems when we face challenges or situations that are complex, how to solve them. It's also the part of the brain that controls that. It regulates our emotions, regulates our moods. It's not the only one that does that, but it's part of the structures that regulate our moods and emotions. It also helps to read other people's emotions, to interpret their emotions, to be able to know how to relate with people. It's also the one that deals with personality expression. We all have different personalities, and then that's the part of the brain that controls that. It's also the seat of motivation. When we say, oh, someone is motivated to do something, that function is being subserved by the frontal lobe, controls our social behaviors so that we know how to behave appropriately in social situations. We know to not just go by the roadside to poo,
Right.
because that would be inappropriate. We know we have to look for a toilet to do that. So that's the part of the brain that controls that kind of behavior, appropriateness of behavior. So when that place is dysfunctional, see people exhibiting disinhibited behaviors, they become disinhibited. So you see someone that is under the influence of alcohol, that is disinhibited, can strip himself naked on the roadside, can sleep inside a drainage or a gutter, because that part of the brain is inhibited when people are under the influence of those kind of substances. It's also the one that observes impulse control, so that we don't act impulsively, and we take time to think things through before we act. So we see how important the frontal lobe is.
Indeed.
Subserving all these functions. So when something affects the frontal lobe negatively, some or sometimes even majority or most of these functions can be affected as well. So take, for instance, the typical example we often use is that of Cage. There's this guy called Gage.
Phineas?
Yes, Phineas. So he used to work in a construction company, and then there was this explosion that happened one day whilst he was at work, and then a rod went through. The explosion sent a rod right through his frontal lobe. The frontal part of his skull pierced his frontal lobe, and then when he recovered from that injury, he had a total personality change. Somebody that used to be very calm, cool, somebody that used to be very religious, loving, caring, kind to his spouse, suddenly became the opposite of that, became irritable, not believing in God anymore, just changed totally. So that is a typical example of how negative events can affect our frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe, as you see, apart from that, it's just behind the forehead. So it's prone to injuries, because people could be walking somewhere, bump their head and all that. It's very prone to injury. But apart from injuries, apart from trauma, it's also affected by some of our habits, lifestyle habits. So it's so sad to say that one of the most important things that affect the frontal lobe, apart from injuries that it's already prone to, is our diet.
Right.
Yes.
So there are habits that we have, there are habits that we engage in, there are things that we may have done or we are still doing that may be affecting our frontal lobe. And there may be many of these things that in the long run will affect, as you have said, personality. And if our personality is affected, our mental health is on the line.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
Now, if we do have such things, can we identify some of those things specifically that can actually affect our frontal lobe?
Yes, we can identify some of them. Some of them are even very common around us. So in terms of diets or things we eat that can affect, directly impact our frontal lobes negatively. So we have, sugary drinks, all these fruit juices packaged in cartons that are sold on the counter, on the shelves. Many of them have a lot of sugar in them. They have a high sugar concentration. Some of them are even sweetened artificially. They would write sugar-free on some of the packets, but then it's sugar-free but it's still tasting sweet because some artificial sweeteners have been added to it, which are equally as bad as sugar itself. So refined sugar, foods that are rich in refined sugar, sugary drinks, all these fizzy drinks we take because we like the carbonated effect it gives us, all these drinks can negatively impact the frontal lobe. Refined carbs, highly processed grains, like, instead of taking whole wheat, we take the highly refined one, which we call white flour, which is easier to get and easier to process and tastes fine and delicate in the mouth compared to using the whole wheat to bake your bread and make your cakes and all that, you'd rather want to use the fine flour. So all these fine white flours, they've been over-processed. The nutritious part of them have largely been removed through the excessive processing. So these kind of foods directly impact the frontal lobe. They negatively affect the frontal lobe. They can damage the frontal lobe. So we also have what we call trans fats. So trans fats can be found naturally in some animal foods, animal products like meat, poultry, dairy, eggs can be found in them, but more especially the processed trans fats, the ones we call the hydrogenated fats that we find in things like margarine, that we find in ready-made cakes, pre-packaged cookies, biscuits, all these things. So they are the ones that can also affect the frontal lobe negatively. In fact, studies have shown that this kind of foods cause cognitive decline. Of the brain. That's the ability of the brain to perform its cognitive functions like memory, like attention and concentration, like learning new things, or even remembering things that have been learned before. So it directly reduces the cognitive functioning of the brain. So we also have highly processed foods like instant meals, all these quick cooking meals, or 2 minutes this, 1 minute that, all these instant meals are devoid of nutrients. And apart from they being devoid of nutrients, there are some of the ingredients that adversely affect our frontal lobe. So we also have aspartame, what we call aspartame. Aspartame is an artificial sweetener. So when they write sugar-free on some of these foods, we should be careful to read the labels on the packaging of this food to see if things like aspartame have been used to sweeten the foods rather than refined sugar, because they are equally as bad as refined sugar. Then alcohol is very bad for the brain. Yes. So alcohol causes a depletion of vitamin B1, that's thiamine, in the body. So, and when it does this, when it's reduced to a certain degree, it can cause what we call Wernicke's encephalopathy. That's inflammation of a certain part of the brain, and this can progress to what we call Korsakoff syndromes found in chronic alcoholics. So this is where we find, so we can see how these things affect. And then when someone has those kind of conditions, the frontal lobe is affected because the person is not able to organize anything, no planning, the person is disinhibited. All those functions are subserved by the frontal lobe. And then the last but not the least is fish. So one would say, oh, fish is better than meat and all that. But unfortunately, most of these fishes these days, our water bodies are polluted. So there's a lot of mercury deposits and other wastes, toxic wastes. PCBs. Yes, that are deposited in our water bodies, and they go into the body of the fish swallows them, eats some of these things. So when we eat fish that have high contents or high mercury contents or things like that, when humans eat those kind of fishes, the mercury content in the fish would get deposited in the liver of the human, the liver, the kidneys, the brain, the frontal lobe. So this can be dangerous, but of course it's not all fishes that are bad. But then we see that all these exotic fishes and the predatory ones, especially the sharks, swordfish, tuna fish.
I wonder who eats sharks.
Tuna fish, then, king mackerel, all these kind of fishes are very high. They contain about 1 million times of the mercury in the water bodies inside of their own bodies because of their smaller body surface. So they are very toxic to the frontal lobe. So now going back to the trans fats, we talked about trans fats being naturally present in animal foods like meat, like poultry, like eggs, and the likes. So one important nutrient, or should I call it one important agent, a chemical agent that is found in this animal product is what we call the arachidonic acid. So arachidonic acid has been found to be inflammatory to the frontal lobe. Studies have shown that it's inflammatory it causes inflammation of the frontal lobe, and that this arachidonic acid, apart from doing that to the brain, can also directly cause cognitive decline of the brain too, like the cognitive functioning of the person is reduced drastically, and it's been indicated as a risk factor in the development of Alzheimer's disease in the elderly. And we know that Alzheimer's disease is a mental disorder that largely involves memory impairment and a degenerative condition of the brain. It's a chronic degenerative disease of the brain. It involves memory impairment and then the loss of ability to perform daily functions that the person used to perform easily in the past. So arachidonic acid has also been shown to cause inflammation in other parts of the body. It's been indicated in arthritis too, because it causes inflammation of joints, pain. So apart from it affecting the frontal lobe, it can affect other parts of the body as well. So this arachidonic acid, it was studied. There's a study by Melanie et al. Some years back that proved this beyond reasonable doubt that this substance can be very toxic to the brain and some other parts of the body.
I have read the work, research, actually accumulation of sources of researches by Dr. Michael Gerber.
Okay.
He does nutritional facts. And he had done some studies on this substance, the arachidonic acid.
Yeah.
As you rightly said, these substances in the right amount, the body needs them.
Yes.
But when they become excessive,
yes,
and then they start acting negatively in the body, it then becomes a big problem.
Yeah.
And I remember that Dr. Gebel identified eggs as one source of very high content of this arachidonic acid.
Yeah.
And yet, to a large extent, in some places, it's this that is still needed
yes,
for survival, for nutritional survival. So the encouragement that we want to give is that if we find plant sources that will supply all that the body needs, then we should rather choose from plant sources because of the problems that is inherent in using some of these animal products. And more as time is going, as pollutions are getting more, as the use of herbicides and insecticides and a lot of these things, they are affecting the plant also because they are affecting the earth. Therefore, the ability to make right choices is much needed now.
Yes.
To be aware of what is available in our environment,
True.
to be aware of what we can choose from, and then, of course, our emphasis right now is that ability to choose.
Yes, absolutely.
To be able to make good decisions. For it's not all the time that one may have to rehearse the information. But if the frontal lobe is in good health, decision making will be more keen and earnest and decided in the right direction.
Yes, I agree with that. And interestingly, arachidonic acid is not found in plants at all. It's only found in animal foods. So, like you rightly said, choosing plant-based foods would free us from this, because I think the body would be able to manufacture the minute amount of it that it needs, even without going into all these animal products, especially when we see that, okay, the other alternatives to eating meat, fish, it's even has become more risky because of the pollution that is going on all around us, all this toxic waste everywhere. So would we rather not choose something that would help our health rather than continuing in habits that would continue to damage our health? I think, like you said, choice, it all boils down or comes down to choice, ability to make our choices. If our frontal lobe is in good condition, then we are able to process information more clearly and then make wise decisions that would help our health.
For many, they believe that I can choose what I like, it's my body. But the emphasis right here is that, yes, we can choose what we like, God will not take that choice from us. The willpower. It is the governing power of man.
Yes.
It is that which, as you have described rightly, even with physiology, helping us to understand that if we can choose to make right choices,
Yes.
there's still a power beyond us. We know that.
Yes.
He created us. He gave us everything in nature.
Yes.
And now it's our turn now to exercise our will to choose that which is best for us. A friend, actually a co-worker, who told me that, look, I love seafoods, but I know it kills me.
Okay, so what did they decide to do?
She eats it. So she eats it.
Oh.
She said, I will only eat it once in a while. So she will go to the food restaurant, actually, and once in a while, we just decide to eat it and get sick. As a psychiatrist, what will you tell that person?
My advice to such a person, or my counsel to such a person would be that, you know, if you know something is obviously bad for you, why kill yourself? Why go through, why use your money to buy death? Why don't you make the right choices? Why don't you just, I think that one of the problems we face as human beings is the ability to discipline ourselves and be able to look away from some things that we love so much, like just look away from it and decide, no, I'm not touching that thing again. I like it, I love the taste of it, but it's not good for me, and so I have to just kill my love for it, you know, that kind of thing. So it takes a lot of discipline to be able to do that. But even if we give this counsel to people to choose right, at the end of the day, the power of choice still lies with the individual.
Right.
You know, but we have the duty to lay down what's good, the pros and cons of those things to them, so that they are able to weigh them and then make an informed decision at the end of the day.
Yes, and that's what we try to do.
Yes.
And that's what we keep doing.
Yes.
So that we can understand the power of choice.
Yes.
The power of the will.
Yeah.
When God made man, he gave us that power, and he won't take it away.
No, he wouldn't.
There is some good, a lot of good in it, but sometimes it may not be so good. Because, like you said, you may give the counsel, and the person will still choose what the person will do or not. But nevertheless, encouragement will help a lot.
Yes,
and the education of what is right. Yeah. For we know that there are some people who are not aware that they can get all they need from the plant kingdom.
Absolutely.
And yet today, science is showing us very clearly that indeed we can have a lot of choices to make when it comes to our diet.
Very true.
From the plant kingdom.
Very
and
true.
That is why we are putting a lot of emphasis and encouragement in choosing from the plant kingdom, because this is where our mental health lies. Our frontal lobe is so important. Yeah. Not that other parts of the brain are important in their function, but when we are talking about the governing power of choice, the frontal lobe is where the seat is.
That's true.
So we must be sure that we feed our bodies with the right type of food that will feed our frontal lobe so that it can function at the highest level.
Absolutely.
And as we see the world running to an end, everybody is saying that things are changing.
Everybody.
Commotion, disasters, things are just bad.
And they are happening rapidly.
Very rapidly. Therefore, emphasis, there's going to be a need to make quick, snappy decisions.
Yes, that's so true.
We must not be in a state of stupor.
No.
Lethargy.
No.
We can't afford to be in that position. And if our food, the food we eat today, the food we eat tomorrow, will impact that, shouldn't we pay attention to the food we eat?
We should.
Absolutely.
Do that.
We must pay attention to the food. And that's why in Nature's Bounties, we want to emphasize that. Encourage the choices of food from the plant kingdom more than from the animal kingdom. First hand from the plant kingdom. is second hand from the animal
from
food.
the animal that ate the plant and processed the plant.
And then we eat the animal.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it's a misconception that people have when they see green leafy vegetables and they're like, what can this contain? Can't contain fats, can't contain proteins. It's just chlorophyll, it's just green. What on earth, what nutrients can this leafy vegetable have apart from minerals and all that? I think that's where the problem lies. Maybe when people begin to realize more and more that everything we actually need have been packaged by our loving Father in these plants, not just plants alone, our whole grains, our nuts, our fruits, because that's the original diet our Creator provided for us, you know, and He wouldn't give us what's not complete. He knew they are sufficient. They would give us all we need. That was why He made them our food when He created us. And then degeneration happened. Sin happened, degeneration started. And then He started allowing other things. Even vegetables came in later. And then clean and unclean animals came in later. Because he permits some things. He gives us His perfect will. But then when man says, no, I don't want your perfect will, it's too stringent, it's too hard to comply with and all that, then He permits some things. He makes provisions. Okay, you can do it this way, but make sure you eat the clean one, don't eat the unclean one. But the perfect one He gave at the beginning, from the beginning, were grains, whole grains, not processed ones, whole grains, yes. Then nuts and fruits. If they were not enough, He wouldn't have given man that. So I think if people begin to realize this more and more, their confidence in switching to plant-based diet would be increased, and then they will be able to do it with all their minds without fearing that they might be missing out on some important nutrients by just sticking to plant-based diet.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And the choice is still ours, nevertheless. Yes. No matter what. But I'd like to conclude with these words. It says, this is the governing power of the nature of man. That is the will. It is the power of decision, of choice. Everything depends on the right action of the will. As we give that will to God, He will then work in us to will and to do according to His own purpose and pleasure. Amen. Then the entire change that we ever will want, the good ones, will happen. Our life will be good, it will be pleasurable, we'll be happy. Strength will come from above to hold steadfast the new life, even the life of faith. And that is why mental, physical, spiritual health depends on our choices. What choices we make today, tomorrow. And this is where we'll pause at this moment, trusting that the Lord will continue to give us more insight, more understanding as we continue to do our best, making the right choices by the power of God that He has given us. So till we meet again then, by the grace of God.